Welfare Association, which is, a citizens initiative at Marol under the East, where it's a fairly new initiative where we work with all stakeholders to ensure that the people, the residents of the area, have a quality life with regard to civic services. And, we are happy to have on board, and we are happy that Dr. Roshni Udyavar accepted our request to conduct this webinar for all of us on how we could be green warriors. Dr. Roshni is a practicing architect and academician whose core competence over 20 years lies in energy efficient and environmental designs of buildings. She has her own firm and has also started an associate called Ecosystems. She has a PhD in resource management, and she was the head of the Rachna Institute of Environmental Architecture from 2013 and 2017. She's well experienced in working with government bodies nationally and internationally. And, she's in her own unassuming way has been very instrumental in helping many civil society organizations and NGOs, take the green initiative forward. So, Dr. Roshni, with this few words of introduction, I let our participants enjoy your expertise. So, over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Marol Citizens Welfare Association, for organizing this on this very nice day, I would say, of Gandhi Jayanti. I think it is very appropriate that we are having this program. So welcome to all of you. The subject that we are going to talk about is greening your housing society. Roughly about an hour, I will give you a holistic view of what are the possibilities in terms of your current housing society, or if you're trying to do a future redevelopment, then what are the possibilities, what should be avoided, yeah? And I don't know why I am getting an echo for some reason. Yes, so I'm sure that a lot of you have already done many things in your housing society. I've been discussing this with Caroline, and she said that people have done this and they need something beyond that. So I am aware that a lot of people have taken initiatives, have done already a lot of things. And I'm sorry if that there is a repetition. So please bear with me, but I've made this presentation considering a very large audience who may not have done anything. So these are basically all the things that we are going to look at today, the background, vision, different aspects of a green society, how to do this whole aspect, how to go about it, and then finally the redevelopment approach as well, how to go for a green redevelopment. So start.
Roshni, just
yes.
Before you start, I'd like to tell the participants that if you have any questions at any time, just type it into the question box. Okay, and we will take up all the questions at the end. Okay, and meanwhile, if you have any other queries, just type it in the box, something that maybe there's a disturbance, you're not able to hear, just type it there. I will take care of the issues there.
Okay, thank you, Rudolph. So to begin with, I just wanted to give you an overview that India being a developing nation, you all know that we are increasing, our carbon emissions are increasing to the extent that today we are almost 4th in the world. And results of this, we also know that there is a huge effect on climate change at different parts, especially melting of glaciers. And all of this is affecting our weather patterns, and we don't know what is coming in the future. So it is our duty to protect the environment. And here's a more positive thing to look at. The report prepared by Climate Works Foundation looks at 2030, what should be done in terms of the future. And these are the mitigation measures if you look at 2030 and 2050. And here I would like you to carefully look at the yellow patch, which is the largest patch, 34% and 35%. for 2030 and 2040. This refers to the electricity consumption, and also to this somewhat patch of 13% and 10%, which is possible to reduce the emissions in the sector of buildings. So, of course, if you are living in any residential society, there are so many things that you could do, including planting of trees, reducing your electricity consumption, water consumption, and so on. So there's a lot you can do in these all of these areas. And overall, at the global level, if you're looking at global emission reductions by 2050, then India's contribution to that can be as much as 14%. And of that, you can see more than 50% is to reduce our energy consumptions. And let me also tell you that this part of energy consumption, overall our per capita is low, because there are a lot of people in India who live in the villages and who consume far less than what we do. So it is our duty living in the cities to reduce our consumption, which is where the carbon emissions are going up. So here's a sort of broad picture of the different areas of the world and the different sectors in which mitigations are possible. And it is estimated that something like 71 gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions can be reduced by 2050 across the various areas of the world, geographies, as well as the various sectors, that is agriculture, buildings, electricity being one of the major ones, transportation, as well as many others. So this is the overall scenario under which we are looking at this housing society and greening of housing society today. So what are the things that that a residential housing society or a building can impact? So firstly, of course, the energy consumption. So the statistics show us that the residential sector is expected to become the largest contributing sector, 37 to 38% by 2030. And we are going to consume the most amount of energy, electricity, because of the number of buildings in this sector, more than commercial. So commercial individually has more impact, but residential sector is by far the largest. And as a result of that, the carbon emissions are also, at the global level, it is 30 to 40%. We also consume a huge amount of materials, but this is not within the scope of our discussion today. We're also going to look at water. In Mumbai is a city which is benefited by near to about 4,000 mld of water daily, which is probably pumped, some of it is pumped as far as 150 kilometers away from the city. So we are taking water from very far, bringing it to the city, and getting it into our taps. And not everybody is aware of it. Not everybody is conserving this water carefully, because there are many people outside who do not get water. And one of the biggest issues that we are dealing with is waste. We have nearly 6,900 metric tons of waste being generated daily in the city of Mumbai. And I'm sure this is the scenario all over the world in different cities, in Bangalore, Delhi, all of it. Outside every city, we have huge dumping grounds, which are big cause of concern, because air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, and in every way, a waste of resources. So let's look at what is the kind of vision we have for a green housing society. I put forward a lot of things, and I will try to explain each one of these things to you. So firstly is we can have energy efficiency and management. We can have water management. We can look at solid waste management. We can look at in existing buildings as well as new buildings, we can look at visual, thermal, and acoustic comfort. Many people do not have this. We can look at indoor environment quality, environment pollution and remediation, in case there are issues. We're living in a city and we have a lot of problems like noise, dust, air pollution, and so on. Ecological landscape design. So we'll also talk about that. And what are the regulations? So broadly, these are the areas which are applicable to both existing as well as new buildings, new housing societies, redevelopment housing societies, and so on. So let's look at each one of these aspects in more detail. So starting with energy efficiency and management. Uh, uh, this is the existing statistics. I've already shown you this, that the electricity consumption in the building sector, that is 28% and 10%, you can see that totally about 38% is a total electricity consumption from the building sector alone. And some of the statistics required to, give you some more enlightenment on this is that we are constantly building more buildings in this sector. So new residential buildings up to 3 billion square meters is going to be added by 2030. Average energy performance index, which I will explain to you a little bit more, is in the range of 48 to 70 kilowatt hour per meter square per year. So this can be further. This is on an average, but in Mumbai, we even have 120 and so on. So which is on the higher side. The use of air conditioning is increasing rapidly, mainly because the buildings are not designed for thermal comfort, and the space cooling and the fans are the largest component of electricity consumption in multi-storied buildings. So these are the background of energy. So if we want to do energy management, there are two levels at which we can do it. One is the apartment level. So there are various things that we can do at the apartment level. And the second is the common areas, like common lobby areas, staircase areas, gardens, pathways, and so on. These are the areas where also we can do energy management. And there are a whole range of things that we can do, from energy efficient lamps to use of renewable energy to using efficient equipment and motors. So to begin with, let me give you an explanation of what can be done in an apartment. So that is, the first thing is, of course, to use efficient equipments and gadgets. So you can have replace, if you are having gadgets which are not 5-star rated or 3-star rated, at least Bureau of Energy Efficiency of India rates this, and you can definitely try to change these equipments, and you will see a major change in your electricity bill in the long run. So this is just to show you an example of if we take these 5 areas, let's say light, fan, refrigerator, air conditioning, and geyser. So in a house, typically geyser is an area which has the maximum consumption. So if you replace a regular geyser with an energy efficient or star rated geyser, or if you replace a fan with a more efficient fan, or lighting with more efficient lighting, you can see on the last column that we have there is a chance of savings between 40 to 60%. So that much of your energy consumption can be brought down. Apart from the fact that you're reducing your own electricity bill, you are also going to get benefits in terms of reduction of carbon emissions, etc., in the longer run. So everybody could do this as well. So this is an example of actually one housing unit, an apartment block, a 1 BHK apartment block, which started using various energy efficient devices. And you can see that how the energy consumption has dropped from 6,498, it had gone up to 6,691, and then come down to 3,564. So you can see that there is a intensive use in the earlier part, and then as we replace, so the replacement looked something like this. So replacement of the existing geysers to the conventional geysers, to the more efficient geysers, to the more efficient the air conditioning units, efficient fans, fridge, everything. You can see that now. For example, here the unit is EPI, or Energy Performance Index, which is total kilowatt hours or units of electricity throughout the year divided by your square meter of floor area. That is called EPI. So the EPI has dropped from something like 144 to 77. And as I initially told you, the average is about 48 to 70. So here, imagine that if you further have more efficient windows, if you have efficient, if you change your geyser from the electric geyser to a solar hot water system, again, there can be, the EPI can come down in the range of 30 or 25 even. So there is a huge potential here in bringing down the energy consumption And bringing down your electricity consumption means bringing down the carbon emissions. So I'll quickly show you what are the sort of quick figures, because everybody says, oh, this all costs us so much. So what is the point? So if you replace the, say, fluorescent tube light, which has, we also consider the ballast and everything losses. And with 18-watt lights, this is in a typical, in a college building, we had proposed this. So from existing to new ones that is more efficient, say 18-watt LED dimmable light, the annual savings were huge, that is 68,000. But the simple payback period was just 4 months. So within 4 months, you can recover your entire cost that you have incurred in replacing and making more efficient fittings. Similarly, this is another example. And then even for fans, you can see if you replace your existing 60-watt or 70-watt old fan to a brushless DC fan, or the payback is a little bit longer. However, if you apply for DSM schemes or something like that, each of the utilities, your electricity company also has schemes, so they can offer you the fan for half the price or something like that. There are various schemes being offered. So you can see here that if I take just a few items and try to put together the capital investment required for making energy efficient buildings, energy efficient lighting alone, and fans, and the simple payback, then not more than 1 year, 5 or 6 months, I'm able to recover my cost invested into those extra or equipment, the change of equipment. Now coming to the common area. So typically a flat would use something like between 10 to 12 kilowatt of hour of electricity per day. But then let's look at the common areas. So common areas is what also there is a huge potential. So about 30% or so, I think more than that, is related to the elevators. So this is it's a huge amount of 30% of if you have elevators in your building, that is consumed in lifts. About another 40% is a common area lighting. So this is generally found in a lot of the housing societies. It may not be exactly the same for you, but generally you can see that the consumption of electricity, you may not have analyzed your building's electricity in this manner, but common electricity areas so is consumed if you don't have a proper motor, if you don't have proper pumps which are energy efficient and so on. This is the reason. So you need to analyze, and you can also make a change in these areas as well. So there are a lot of areas like say staircase areas, lobbies, parking areas, which all are lit in the night. But do we require them to be lit all of the time, or do we require the amount of light to be so much? So there are various solutions here as well. For example, I will just show you what we had proposed for a building, and we also did part of the changes here. So there are a lot of figures, I'm sorry, but if you can just see staircase area, the existing 36-watt tube lights were replaced by these dimmable LED lights. So whenever there is it has a sensor inbuilt in it, and whenever there's a person coming, it will always be 18 watts. But if there is no movement or no person coming there, then it would drop down to 4 watts. So imagine the amount of savings. So during the whole time of the night, hardly maybe 1 or 2 person may be moving there. So your total energy consumption can be brought down. And we did the calculations, and then the savings are already achieved in this case. So simple payback period is for, staircase area was just about 4 months, and for passage area was just about 5 months. So within this much time, you can recover the cost invested in this kind of thing. And overall, after that is at least for 6 to 10 years, maybe you can benefit in the long run with this kind of lighting. The other important areas in terms of the building's common area energy consumption includes pumps, motors, and DG sets, in case you have DG sets. These are also huge energy guzzling sources, pumps which are used for pumping your water on a daily basis to the upper overhead tank. from the underground tank, or if you have motors running on your elevators, and if they are out of, they are not efficient motors, then over a period of time, the amount of load they begin to take is huge. And this is where the mistakes happen. So in case you have it checked, see how much energy it is consuming, whether we can replace it, whether it can be repaired, whether it can be maintained. So these are, I have put here some of the standards that, for example, the Energy Conservation Building Code of India gives standards for the pumps, DG sets, and motors. And if you abide by those conditions, you will have definitely a lots and lots of savings in your common area energy consumption. Let's look at renewable energy, solar and wind. Also, we have some options in terms of replacement of some parts. So, India being a sunshine country, we are in the tropical belt mostly, and we do have very high sunshine hours throughout the year, 2,900 hours per day. 320 days. So we have, so this is the overall scenario, being that, so we have the two things that we can do here is solar thermal and solar photovoltaic. Very simple. And also we can go for wind hybrid systems, which I personally have not done, but I have seen in some housing societies they have gone for it, and they have also been benefited. Simple reason being that in some times of the year you may not get good solar output, and in which case you have a wind system, and there can be a hybrid, there can be storage, and that can be used. So solar thermal basically means use of the heat energy of the sun and using it mainly for heating water. So there are various types of solar heat hot water systems, from simple thermosiphon, that is natural flow, and there are forced flow systems also, that is which are pumped, the water is pumped. Of course, when you have for a multi-storied building, you have to have a forced flow system which pumps the water uniformly to all the flats. So that kind of thing can be done. The efficient ones are slightly costlier, but the efficient solar hot water systems are using the evacuated tubes. And generally, but there is also a rule that as you grow, as you have a higher and higher building, this is from one of the codes of the, this is one of the studies of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, where they're showing you that average annual solar irradiation on the roof and walls for a 12-story tower building. So as you go taller, the per flat availability of sunshine goes on reducing, which is a simple logic. And therefore it doesn't make a lot of sense for very high-rise buildings, because the rooftop area is reduced per flat. So you can see that roof area for solar per flat, how much is the availability. And as you go higher and higher, so when you go 25 and 20 stories, the per flat availability is much less. So up to maybe 10 stories or so, it still makes sense to have solar either in the form of thermal or solar rooftop or PV. So this here typically shows you what is the requirement of hot water. It even includes kitchen and wash basin and other areas. So about 312 liters at about 40 degrees centigrade is what is calculated. And again, this is from the same standard given by BEE, which shows that if you use different types of flat plate collectors, 2-meter and 4-meter square, whether you can achieve any electricity savings. And here you can see that when you go for, say, 24-story, or say, that is where it is not sufficient at all. But up to 12 stories, you can have good amount of electricity savings per flat. And this is a somewhat a schematic of how this can be done, because this planning is very important, so that each and every flat gets a uniformity in terms of the hot water when they need it. Solar photovoltaic systems are systems by which you can use the solar panels for generating electricity, and that can be used for any purpose. So basically, there are so many different types of solar panels that are available in the market today. But the most efficient one is the monocrystalline one, which is of course higher in cost. So there can be a little bit of, you can you may have somewhat thin film or something which requires double the area actually as compared to monocrystalline panels, but these have a life expectancy of 25 to 30 years, and they provide good efficiency. 18% is one of the highest efficiency among solar panels, and these can be utilized in buildings. So I'll show you a few case studies. Some of these are actually designs done by us for proposed buildings, and some of them are actual practice, some of them are actually case studies. So this is a proposed solar hot water system for a building, and you can see that we have been able to fit all of the panels, schematic layout of solar hot water system. So this was on raised steel framework on which solar photovoltaic as well as solar water heating were provided. About 152 tenements, 25,000 liters per day of hot water. Cost was about 35 lakhs. And savings were also calculated for the entire complex with this. This is another example of a residential building with commercial line, with shop line at Nashik. And they had to comply with the energy conservation building code. But here we had to look at the part of the building which is under shadow and which cannot be having solar hot water systems, for example. And then the layout has to be such that the panels are most efficient, considering that they are facing the 19-degree latitude, slope, and all of that. This is how we could do a proper analysis of the building terrace area and place those panels so that you get maximum efficiency. In this case, just to look at the last line here, about 40% of the total hot water requirement was managed in the rooftop. So solar PV was also provided, but solar hot water system up to 40% was able to be provided on the rooftop of this kind of a building. Then, as I told you, there are two other case studies which are not done by us, but which we have just sort of three case studies are here. This one is a society in Dombivli. Again, it invested something like 57 lakhs on a hybrid power system that is solar plus wind. And we will look at what they have achieved. Another one in Khar, Ground Plus 9, which has done hybrid as well as had hybrid, that is solar plus wind. And these are their the common areas. 100% in the case of the first case, the 100% benefit after installing the hybrid power. That means all of their common areas, elevators, water pumps, common area lighting was all achieved using the hybrid system of renewable energy. So they did not have any electricity bill from these sources, and about 70% in the second case. In terms of payback, so you can see in the first case, the payback was 9 years, and in the second case, 18 years. So this is the kind of timeline that they had in terms of solar and wind hybrid. The power generated by hybrid sources is used majorly for operating elevators, water pumps, common area lighting, and so on. And this system can be a very environmentally friendly solution. And now we also have the net metering policy, which means you can give back the excess energy in case you have back to the grid. This is another documented, I think it came in the newspapers some years ago, housing society in Bhandup, which has been able to, put up the solar panels on their roof, 546 flats, 2,000 residents, installed a solar project generating about 800 kilowatt hours, meeting about 70% of the electricity needs of the society, lighting up passages, parking, common areas, water pumps, bore wells, motors, and lifts. So the simple payback for them was 30 months. And the society will be generating its own electricity at a cost of 2.71. Now, this is as per the net metering policy, I believe. As compared to 14 rupees per unit is what you normally get charged when you when you have to you pay for an utility company. So annual generation of 2.92 lakh kilowatt hour saves about 309 tons of carbon dioxide emissions, and also in terms of electricity bill, 36 lakhs per year. So this is the overall scenario of this housing society, which has managed to put solar PV on its rooftop. So about 7,738 tons, if we look at over a period of 25 years, is what they have saved in terms of carbon emissions. So these renewable energy systems can be grid connected or they can be standalone systems. So mostly when you have solar hot water systems, they would be standalone. That is, they're providing hot water to the building. They're not doing anything outside. Solar PV, you may, if you have more than enough, you may also connect it to the grid and meter it. And if it is excess, you will be, paid when it is excess, and sort of the net will be given to you. So these are the different types of systems. You can have a standalone off-grid configuration. You can have a solar PV system with grid tiered configuration. You can have a solar PV system or hybrid system configuration, or solar PV integration, which has both DC as well as AC supply, because AC is what we require for all our equipment and DC is what we get out of the renewable energy system that we put up. There's also an option of doing retrofit. So you can improve, a retrofit is the option of improving an existing building by making some changes in the facade, in the envelope of the building, like in the fenestrations or something like that. So I'll quickly show you an example of a building where we had done a retrofit mainly to improve the thermal comfort of the college. It's a college building, and some of the things that we did were installing, we introduced high albedo paints, we introduced these turbo ventilators. The main thing that we did was to have an underdeck roof radiant barrier, which reduced the overall heat coming from the roof, and various other changes we did in order to increase the lighting levels inside the building. So this is the final output of what the classroom looked like as compared to before, which was quite uncomfortable, as well as lighting levels were very low. So basically, one of the things that I want to show you here is in this last graph, we were continuously monitoring this building, and one of the things it showed us is the roof bottom temperatures post retrofit had come down by almost 13 degrees centigrade. So that would impact a huge way in how people are going to use their fans, because thermal comfort levels will be affected directly, and therefore the usage of fans and other equipment will also be reduced. Another very good example is the New York Empire State Building, which was built in the 1930s. So it had no features of energy efficiency when it was built. However, much later in early 2000s, the Rocky Mountain Institute considered a plan for reviving and making it more energy efficient. And so you can see that they did a lot of things, including, for example, this one, the building windows, entire 6,500 windows of this building were changed from single glaze to triple glaze, which makes it very, very energy efficient, because single glaze means almost all of the heat comes inside the building. So, and plus there are other benefits of acoustics and so on. So all of this made the other cumulative effects were that the chiller plant size was reduced, and overall, by doing a retrofit, they were able to reduce the overall consumption by 38%. So this is how you can sort of consider retrofits as well in case of existing buildings. You can also, very important aspect in many buildings is the lack of good daylighting and visual comfort. So how this can be enhanced, can also be enhanced by doing a retrofit. Introduction of, say, light wells in places where there is no light in the center of the building or so on, can be done by introducing light wells in the center of the building. Light pipes can also be introduced, and many other things can be done in existing buildings. And in the last thing I want to tell you in energy sector is that the Bureau of Energy Efficiency defines a nearly zero energy building is one which has an energy performance index of about 15 kilowatt hour per meter square per year. So I showed you an example of a house which had come down to 77. And I said that if you use it to, if you use say solar or hot water system, it can come down to 30, and further many things can be done. So you can bring down the energy consumption of your flat to 15, then it would be considered nearly zero energy. Of course, it has to be for the whole building. So this is how, and all over the world, there is now a trend for nearly zero energy buildings. In fact, the European Commission has asked all new buildings to have to only go for nearly zero energy formula for all the buildings. So this is also something that you should have in mind. We have our in our own country, we have the Paryavaran Bhavan, which is a very good example in New Delhi. This is a actually net positive building, because there are on the roof of this building, there are a whole lot of solar panels which are able to generate enough electricity for the building, and also they are sending out the excess energy. So the main thing in this building is that there is no energy being used for daylighting. They've done a very good daylighting design in this building. So no lights are used during the day, and therefore, and all other systems are also made in such a way that the entire energy consumption is taken care of by the rooftop solar plant, which is also, sort of acting as a shading device for the building. So that was about energy. Now let's look at in the area of water, what can be done. There are
Roshni, before we go to
yes.
Rudolph here, before we go to water,
Yeah.
there are a couple of questions. So may I ask the questions now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so Karthik Menon is asking,
Hmm.
would he would like your comments on net metering versus storing the electricity generated from PV cells using batteries. What would be a better idea, considering both the environmental and economic factors?
See, storage, we only have solutions such as lithium ion batteries and so on, which, as you all know, is not such a great solution. There are new options now coming in the market, but still in the experimental stage. So, environmentally, if you ask me, storage is not a good idea. Net metering is definitely better. But there are certain norms of the government which you need to look at. For example, they say that 80% needs to be used by the consumed by the building, and then the excess 20% goes back, something like that. And some minimum percentage of energy has to be taken from the utility. That minimum percentage is also defined. So if you look at all those things, then I think definitely net metering is better.
Thank you, Roshni. Caroline has a question. Is there a panel of companies who can be approached to help housing societies with solar fittings?
um, I think there are a whole lot of companies empaneled with the Maharashtra Energy Development Agency. I'm not sure if they have listed them, but maybe we can check on their website. I know that there are a lot of empaneled companies, both in the renewable energy sector as well as in the energy efficiency sector. And I'm sure that these can be approached. They are all certified or empaneled by the state agency. So then they are most reliable.
Right. If anybody has any questions on this section, you can still type it into the question and answer box, and I will take it up later. We will now move on to the section on water. And I would, at this stage, request all the participants, if you could type in about yourself. How did you come to know about this webinar? Where are you from? We'd like to know a little bit about you. So whenever you have the time, just type it in. Roshni, Karthik has another follow-up question. Does using a solar powered water heater provide for hot water during the night too? Does it also involve storing water without losing its temperature?
Uh, Yes, there are. I mean, you can get hot water throughout the day, provided there is a proper planning done. I know that there are many societies which have installed solar water heater systems and not planned properly, and then there are many issues like people don't get the hot water at the times when they need it, and so on. But if this is properly done, planning is properly done, and also the entire system is properly insulated with the correct R values as required, and so on. And I showed you a schematic in which the different flats are configured as per a particular system. then yes, you should be able to. So it actually looks at the maximum amount of hot water required, say for 4 families, and one unit is connected to 4 families. So at any time of the day, the maximum amount of water should be available for this family. So if you design it that way, then there should not be a problem. If you don't, then there will be issues. You may not get exactly the kind of hot water that you normally are used to using a geyser, like an electric geyser.
Okay, and the, Neeta is asking, Neeta Ratwani is asking, will there be a recording available as she has joined in late?
Yes, this is also live on YouTube, so we can send you the link in case you don't have it.
Okay, and Girish is asking, Girish Vaingankar is asking about solar water heaters. What about the rainy season? How efficient are they?
Well, you have to have a backup system for the solar. See, solar heaters do work, but not so efficiently. Whenever there's a cloud cover, when there is a complete overcast sky for 3 4 days, we do get such situations in Mumbai. Then you may not get. And this is a particular situation that warm, humid areas like Mumbai, entire Konkan belt will face. But most of the rest of the country does not face this problem. Like Delhi and Nagpur, they don't have that overcast sky situation. So in places like Mumbai, yes, for 4 months you need to have some other backup system. I would advise maybe a gas geyser or even a very efficient electric geyser as a backup, which can be used for the 4 months.
Thank you. And Adrian is asking, would you be able to give us a list of societies, reference of housing societies in Mumbai where they have been successfully implemented?
Okay, I will try to do that.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Roshni. We'll move on to the next section.
Okay. So coming to water management, we have the three areas that we can look at in terms of water management. One is we can harvest rain and use it in our societies in whatever way we can. We can use efficient equipment. Of course, a lot of leakages and all these things happen, and probably not so much in residential, because residential we can individually take care of leaking taps and not efficient devices and so on. And lastly is if you have a lot of space, you can also do water recycling, which some housing societies have done. To start with the rainwater harvesting, now this is something that all the water, for example, that we get in Mumbai is rainwater harvested water, which is stored in these beautiful reservoirs and lakes, starting from the Tulsi Lake and the Vihar Lake and all of the Bhatsa and Tansa and all these lakes. Some of you may have visited Tansa Lakes, which is so far away, and the water comes from there. And I often have seen there are people who living in these areas who do not have water, who have to walk long distances to get water. So we are really, really privileged in getting this kind of water supply, and the BMC is doing a very good job of it. But our job is to see how we can harvest the water that is falling in our society and not allow it to go into gutters and go back into the sea or flood some area and so on. So how can we harvest this water as much as possible? Because one of the things that we have done over a period of time is to concretize all our surfaces. We all need parking. So every possible space in a housing society today is like concretized. So there's no water percolating down, it is running off, and running off is not such a great thing. We have to reduce the runoff. As they say in Marathi, there is a very nice quotation, I don't know the Marathi version of it, but it says, if the water is flowing, is running, make it walk, and if it is walking, make it sit. So you have to slow down the pace of water. And you have all seen what happens in Mumbai during heavy rains. There is like a gush of a stream of river of water that is going out of our buildings and outside. So what we can do, there are two things. One is a storage. So if there is a lot of space, if you can invest in storage, underground tanks, there are entire like there is a school in Panchgani which has an entire storage water tank below it. And in ancient times, almost all of the individual houses had their own rainwater harvesting system underneath the house by storing the water underneath. So that those were all systems of the past, but storage is one option. Second is if you have a good chance of recharging the groundwater, if your soil and your geology in that particular area allows you to recharge, then you can also recharge the groundwater. So the various components that probably can be involved in rainwater harvesting in your building are the catchments, that is the areas which can catch the water. So you can see I've put different numbers here, 0.95, 0.45 to 6. So these are all the runoff coefficients. So different surfaces have different runoff coefficients. That is simply to say how fast the water flows on this. So a space like a grass actually is going to absorb the water. So the runoff is much less. However, after a certain point, it will be saturated and then it will start to flow. Then you will require some channels. So you will have to either have some kind of piping system for collecting this water from the catchments. You can have some filtration systems for, so these are pre-made filtration systems which can be attached to the downtake pipes, and then they can filter the water. They have some pre-made filter material, or there can be actual filter made in the ground before the water gets stored in some place, or before it even gets recharged into the groundwater. And finally, the groundwater recharge itself can be done. It can be done in existing wells. Bore wells can be recharged, or you can even have a groundwater recharge system made especially in your building. So you have the catchments, you have the channels, you have the subsoil water, the deep level water. All of these can be recharged using a rainwater harvesting system. And how much water can one harvest is a very simple formula of the total potential of rainwater that can be harvested from your rooftop. So as an example, from 100 square meters of area, considering about 2000 of rainfall, and 0.85 as a runoff coefficient, which is generally what a concrete surface allows, or even more, you can harvest up to 1,70,000 liters. So there is a huge amount of water that's running off. So think about how you would like to at least recharge it to the ground, if not store it. Storage has problems of space, and it also has problems of cost, because you need to invest into a storage device. But if you can, then why not? I have seen a house in the outskirts of Mumbai, an entire house uh, which had like 4 large tanks. During the rainy season in Karjat, they were collecting all the water and then using that water throughout the year. So that is also possible, but of course the scale is different. In housing societies, the scale is different. So these are various places where we have successfully done, and we know that a lot of housing societies have been able to successfully install rainwater harvesting, at least for groundwater recharge, if not for storage and reuse, and at least been able to bring down their tanker water consumption, which was a major problem in some areas. I just want to also show you a large scale planning that we did for a high rise building in the suburbs of Mumbai, where really in this is a redevelopment project. The problem was there was no space. The geology did not permit us to put in too much water into the ground. So we had to come up with really innovative solutions, because like open wells, we had all of this stormwater system designed in a way with barriers and with percolation pits and so on, in order to allow the water. So you can see these are recharge pits. There are baffle walls at regular, these are all the baffle walls at regular intervals. Then there are open wells that we made, open, which would be of course closed with something, but then these are open wells because there was no place basically to store the water. So in large buildings, especially high rise tall buildings, we have to consider or innovative options of doing rainwater harvesting. So what we were able to at least theoretically do here was to, for example, at least have an underground storage tank of rainwater harvesting with 98,000 liters, and 4 holding tanks on the surface of 60,000 liters. So total about 2,40,000 liters of storage. Surface runoff from the site, from paved and landscape area, was directed for groundwater recharge through percolation and recharge pits in the existing stormwater drain. So it was all designed in that way, covered and all of that. Recharge pits could take up to 70% of peak runoff of 100 per hour. This is also very important, to be able to design systems so that there is no flooding in the complex. And the holding tanks were also designed for peak runoff of about 100 per hour. There were about 2 to 3 holding tanks. Then in terms of water efficient equipment, so one can make sure that all the equipment, whether it is if you have a pressure regulating wall, if you don't have a dual flush system, then have a dual flush system at home. You can have sensor based faucets, but those are mostly for the common areas, common spaces where people don't care to close the taps, or you could have people to close the taps. You could also have drip irrigation, not only for your common areas, but also for your housing inside your own houses, inside your balconies. Also, you could drip irrigation can be used so that you use much less water than what the plant requires. So I mean, then what sometimes people over flood the plant with water. So these are all efficient things that we can do. Water efficient things can be done. And if you have space, then you can also think of a decentralized wastewater treatment system. And here are some examples mainly done by the Eureka Forbes Institute of Environment many years ago, and also by Dr. Gokhale. He has done this sort of gray water recycling mostly in many of the places using reed bed systems. So actually, what you're seeing is gardens, but they are basically water treatment systems. So you know that your gray water that is coming from your bathrooms and kitchens, they don't contain a lot of pollutant load, and you can easily treat them by taking them through the roots of plants, which treats them, and then they can be used for landscape irrigation as well. So depending upon space and other constraints, you can even consider this as an option. So next area is solid waste management.
Okay, at this stage, we don't have any questions in the chat box. Would anyone like to ask Roshni any questions here? Then you can just put on your microphone and do the same.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, introduce yourself and then ask the question, please.
Yeah, hi, sir. This is Karthik again.
Right.
So I just had a question. So, ma'am, you spoke about grey water being used for common spaces like garden areas. So, but don't they contain pollutants like, soap water, detergent water? Aren't these pollutants for them?
Yes, so the system for them is not very complex and can be designed at a local level by a consultant, or somebody can do that for you. So basically, what is done is there is a oil filter and a grease filter. Grease and oil filter is built. So basically, most of the water coming from your kitchen or your bathroom mainly contains soaps and it contains oil. So all that is treated by using simple filters of, one is the oil and grease filter, then you can have charcoal and other simple things, and then you can allow it to go through the root of plants, by the end of which at least the water is good enough for use in the plants itself, because there is an organic nutrients also there in these gray water, which is useful for the plants. So the examples that I had shown there in the previous slide, this one, so these are all gray water treatment, and also in some cases the black water treatments, which were done by simple filters. So when you have something more, like if you have a black water system as well, then you can have a baffle tank reactor. For again, that you will require underground space, which is similar to a septic tank, but it has more baffles, so that and there is also a filter medium put into it, so that the water moves and is more and more clarified as it goes from one stage to the other.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Shall we go ahead?
There's one more question.
Okay.
This is from Girish Waingankar. He asks, rainwater harvesting has filtration system. How can that be cleaned?
So there are two systems. One system you can put in the downtake pipe itself. Now this is like a removable filter. You can remove the entire filter, and then every year before the monsoon, that entire filter can be either replaced if it is completely choked, or at least cleaned up. So those are the filters that go in the downtake pipes. I don't know if they are available. At one time they were, or we actually had them made in one of the colleges. Then there is those filters which are in the ground. So here what we do is we generally have a backwash system. So the backwash system is designed so that just before the rainfall, we just clean up the entire system. So you allow the water to flow in the reverse direction and remove all the pollutants out. And there is an exit for the pollutants. So either you can have a first flush device in the downtake pipes. Also, you can have a first flush device, and you can allow the 7 days of water to, first 7 days to go away, so that there is no pollutant. And even in the filtration system, you can have a backwash system so that the whatever pollutants that are stuck there can probably go away. In addition to that, you can also provide some kind of jali or something at your terrace level, so that you can avoid any kind of hard matter or even dry leaves or something like that going inside the filtration system in the first place. So a series of things like this need to be done at all levels, but definitely filters are cleanable. They are not an issue.
Thank you, Roshni. I think you can proceed.
Okay, so solid waste management is an area I think a lot of people have put their hands into, and maybe there were issues and so on. So there are also we can think of making a zero waste society, wherein we have the wet and dry waste segregation is the first thing. Segregation of recyclables in terms of glass, metal, and all of that. Detailed segregation can also be done. I know that there are segregations of up to 25 levels that you can go for, even medical waste and a lot of different waste. And then you can see how the organic waste can be recycled. Now, I know that the problems exist with segregation itself. Although people segregate, there are lots of things which are not in the right place, and hence there has to be a second round of segregation at the housekeeping level. So the housekeeping of the society has to definitely know what goes into an organic part and what doesn't go, and to separate them out, and therefore to make the system more workable. And of course there are other issues as well, and you all know these, that we have the problem of waste is a huge problem in our city, which is causing damage in terms of air, sound, soil, odor, and of course now even bioaerosols, which are very, very dangerous because they carry the pathogens, and they can be so much harmful. So waste management, if it is done at a segregated level, at a decentralized level in the society, can help in reducing the municipal infrastructure. So it can be done at a level of a single building, or if there is not enough space, it can be done at the level of combined like 2 or 3 buildings, or even at the ward level. So we had a webinar a few weeks ago on solid waste management, and we seem to also come to the conclusion that the new DP, the new development plan of Mumbai, has allocated some spaces in each ward for known as the place for facilitation, waste facilitation. So it is possible that we can also approach, in case it is not possible within individual societies to do this. If it is done, it is not, there's nothing like it. But if not, then it can also be done at the ward level. So there you will have to approach the local representatives, get together with other society members and do the segregation. So waste audit is a very important thing, to know what kind of waste is probably coming out of the building and what goes into what. So initially you can do this kind of studies to find out the quantum of waste that is coming out, and therefore design your system accordingly. Of course, if you're making an organic waste system, you need to do a proper waste audit. And then for the organic waste, there are various solutions like organic composting. You can have vermicomposting. If there is no space, then even electric composting, which is not, because it will use electricity, but I'm just showing you that is also an example. If you have a lot of space, then, and you can also consider biogas. And if you have lot of organic waste and other things, other organic loads nearby, you can even consider biogas. So these are the various options for treating the wet waste. And then there is also one more option here, city farming. This was a concept developed by R.T. Doshi, late R.T. Doshi, who has a 1,200 square feet of terrace in Bandra. What is done here is that the waste is directly used in the plants. And in his particular flat of 1,200 square feet, he was growing about 5 kgs of vegetables and fruits daily. So there is this science is also there, but one needs to study, and can also be done. And of course, this can also lead to you growing things in your own society. Segregation, of course, is a major aspect. So, what are the simple things? Then definitely every building can do e-waste. Now, today there are various companies which install these e-waste collectors. You can collect, and they will collect the e-waste from your building at regular intervals, or you can even connect with the local the raddi wala or kabadi wala, and give these things segregated. All you need to do is that you need to provide at maybe 2 or 3 floors. You can provide these separators, or you can have one common in the entire wing or building or something like that, depending upon the size of the building. The important thing in solid waste is that the characterization of the waste, what kind of waste is coming out, in terms of the organic, in terms of the recyclables. This aspect is very important in order to design the proper system. The appropriate technology can be selected, and selection of technology also involves that you do not create new problems, such as rodents and mosquitoes and other things which may be involved, especially in the waste or treatment of organic waste. So that is another thing that should be done, that should become very, very important to consider at the planning stage itself. Health and safety. So while the BMC said, okay, you should do the waste only at your building level, my concern really is the health and safety of buildings cannot be compromised, and this should be paramount while designing any system. If you can develop business models, that is what happens to the organic compost, can it be at least utilized so that you do not have any requirement of buying fertilizers or buying organic compost for your building? Can you at least utilize it for this? And then if you can make small saplings or sell something like that, can also be considered as a business model. And mostly, generally, I have found that housekeeping staff takes care of the recyclables they themselves, but even that can be included in the business model. Training is very important of the housekeeping, and this needs to be probably done at a regular intervals, regular period, to see that the new staff is always trained in segregation, in doing the things properly. Otherwise, there can be lots of issues which I have written down here. And monitoring of the waste system, especially if it is within your premises. Even if you have a segregation system, monitoring of that is also an important aspect. So that is about the waste management. Should I go ahead, Rudolph, or you have some questions here?
As of now, there are no questions on this section.
Okay.
Okay, and there on the rainwater harvesting, there was a question.
Okay.
One was by Pankaj Chowdhury.
Uh-huh.
He wanted to know what is the typical cost for a rainwater harvesting for a society that is having 2 wings and 7 floors each.
I cannot give you a one-word answer for that because I wouldn't know what kind of whether you have a geology which allows for groundwater recharge, whether I can put in a storage system. So one has to know those details. So there is no thumb rule. Although I can look at all my projects and I do have some kind of thumb rule as to if I do storage systems, what it would cost me. But I mean, offhand, I think it would be not correct to give you a number.
Yeah, so can I volunteer a number? We have seen that when you do it for a recharge system, the thumb rule is around 2,000 rupees per flat. Okay, so just keep that as a thumb rule. It could vary, like Roshni said, based on your particular area. Okay, and we had Melissa Vaz who asked about the water meters. So Melissa, what is your question? If you could just put on your microphone and ask the question. You just wrote water meters
I
in
just
Mumbai.
wanted to know why in Mumbai we do not have the charge. Why are we not charged for using water per flat?
Because we are getting almost a good amount of rainwater, and it's a system of cross subsidy that the government has developed. You're right that in many countries water is heavily charged for, especially individual meters are made and all that. And I think many times the MCGM has considered making this at least for individual wings and things like that, but so far it has not materialized for various reasons. It has not materialized. If you have individual meters and if you charge people for that, then I'm sure that people will start making everything possible to reduce their water consumption. We are not paying for our water. Right now, we
Yeah,
are actually not paying anything for our water.
and many people misuse that. That's what I feel.
Yes, yes. So on an average, the municipal corporation supplies something like 135 liters per person per day. But we have seen even up to 800 liters per person per day in different housing societies when audits were done, etc. So there is a wide range of how people use water.
Thank you so much.
And Roshni, now the questions are coming in on waste management. So Caroline has a question. We need urgent training for managing wet waste in housing societies. Can you suggest something?
There are quite a few organizations that I can recommend. One is Green Communities Foundation, and also there is Jyoti Mapsekar's Trimukti Sangatna. Actually, they provide you with these people who they call as Bhaginis, whom they are training them with all sorts of detailed ways of waste management. So their organization, that is Trimukti Sangatna, is also another organization which actually provides training. But right now, in fact, both with Green Communities Foundation and with Sri Mukti Sangatna, we are planning a very detailed training program for different stakeholders. That is our Institute of Environmental Architecture and Research. And we are trying to put it forth to the BMC to train all levels of municipal workers as well as individual housing societies. So at different levels, we are trying to do that. But for now, I would think that I can definitely share with you these two organizations, GCF and Sri Mukti Sangatna, who provide training, who also provide actually trained people who can come and work for your housing society.
And I have the number. I will put it there because somebody has asked for the number. Deepak has asked for the number of Sri Mukti. Okay. And Karthik Menon has a question. Does wet waste need to be ground before being composted, especially for non-vegetarian food waste, bones, etc.? Is using an electric composter a good idea? I've heard they also consume a lot of electricity.
Okay, so this is a technical issue. Basically, I'll tell you what I think, and then I have also here people like Avinash Kubal who maybe can answer this question more in detail towards the end. Basically, you even if you don't do any grounding, the things do get composted, whether it is or wet, whether it is vegetable waste or it is non-vegetable waste. Non-veg may take a longer period and longer time, and it would definitely help if you would pulverize it in some way. But again, that uses energy. So I have seen, for example, in Orchid Hotel, which initially started the composting system, they had a nice pulverizer, and whatever the garden waste as well as the food waste was all pulverized, and therefore the composting takes place faster. But nevertheless, you can do composting in the absence of this also, only the time period would be much longer. This is what is my opinion. But I would think that maybe Avinash could answer this maybe now or towards the end on this question.
Dr. Avinash, would you like to take it up now?
Yeah, because I was muted.
Yeah.
If I go through this question of Karthik Menon, he asked me what does wet waste need to be grounded before being composted? Karthik, now that depends on what kind of wet waste you're talking about. Are you talking about kitchen waste, or are you talking about the waste which is generated from your garden, or what? So there are different methods which are followed depending on the season, like summer, monsoon, and winter. There are different seasons uh, in Mumbai because during summer or during winter, the humidity levels in the air are different, and in monsoon it is very high. So we recommend a system which works well across other seasons than that of monsoon. In monsoon there is different system. Uh, Wet waste need to be grounded so as to reduce the water content into it, and that helps a lot in processing the whole garbage. Then about the non-vegetarian food, yes, there are systems available, possible, can be designed for treating the non-vegetarian food waste also. But generally, in Indian homes, if we consider the amount of non-vegetarian food waste which comes from like fishes or any kind of meats or something, that can be treated along with the vegetable waste because generally the quantities are less than about 15% of the total quantity. So that can be worked out. Uh, Electric composter is a good idea. You ask about that, then my answer would be it is a very costly. First of all, it is very costly system. The capital cost is very high. Second thing is that operating costs are very also very high. So these systems are affordable mainly to the big hotels, which has a space constraint, and therefore these are not advisable for the housing society. But for housing societies, other systems can be used. Thank you.
Roshni, we can continue now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take up all the questions now at the end.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next section, which is environment pollution remediation. So there are various kinds of pollution that you may be encountering. It could be water pollution, maybe because of some contaminated water body in the vicinity, which is sort of causing some issues to you, which is flowing next to you, or which in many cases you may not be able to do because it may be a public body or something. But if it is flowing through your society or causing some damage to your society, then perhaps you can take some action. Air quality in terms of dust levels, in terms of also the noise levels, you can do some things over there in terms of putting up noise barriers, in terms of maybe putting noise barriers even as trees, or even controlling the dust levels by putting some kind of trees along the borders, which can reduce the amount of dust coming inside. Or specifically related to any kind of pollution, one can look at the solutions that are possible. So there are various in a city like Mumbai, where we are so closely, densely packed, there can be various sources of pollution that can be affecting. I know that there are so many buildings or houses which don't open their windows at all because of the noise levels in the street. So there can be various issues that can be faced, and we can look at specifically what are the issues and can produce some solutions. For noise specifically, there can be some things on the building facade that can be done, or if it is like rising noise, or it can be even the windows. That is, when you shut the windows, you absolutely don't get any noise. So the specific types of glass can be recommended, which reduce noise levels. Or you can even have noise barriers. In terms of indoor air quality, I mean, this is a whole large subject, but it can have various things, like sometimes in indoor environments you have humidity levels, you have dust levels, you have major issues of maybe sometimes even VOCs if you're using a fresh house, which has been freshly interior decorated, and you have all these plywoods, etc., which are giving out various VOCs. Then important thing is firstly to have good ventilation. You should be able to flush out the air on a regular basis. Don't keep your house always closed, etc. And having plants also helps you in reducing the VOCs and the chemicals and the SPM and so on. And if in the worst case scenario, to have an air filtration system which is capable of absorbing the VOCs and the SPM levels. So these are some of the things that may be encountered, and there are solutions for this. In terms of carbon footprint, yes, if you reduce your energy consumption, which I talked in the beginning of the webinar, then you can even you can look at the carbon emissions that your building or your society is going to reduce. So that is, you can offset your carbon emissions in that manner. You can also have a tree plantation program on a regular basis. If you have space in your society, plant indigenous native trees, which may increase the biodiversity as well. You can even have vertical or even have terrace gardens if there is space, and if there are people who volunteer to take care of it. There are lots of people who have the time to do this. So maybe they can volunteer to grow vegetables in certain parts of the building if the space is available. I just wanted to show you this one very interesting example. This is a house in Kemp's Corner, which is a multi-storied, which is on a multi-storied building. But this particular house has a very good indoor air quality for few reasons. One is that it has a flooring which is made out of cow dung. The walls are lime plastered, and there is absolutely no kind of adhesive used in any furniture. It's all made out of wooden furniture, etc., and no adhesives are used. And even the electricity, you can see they're using castor oil lamps. Of course, this is the extreme level, but these are pictures of this of the house, and they take a lot of efforts in this house to even get the villagers to come and apply that specific plaster here and so on. But just the point to make that if you want to consider what kind of indoor air quality is there in your house and how to improve it, there are various solutions for this as well. There are various things that people have done which we can maybe partly, if not wholly, adopt. In terms of landscape, lots of buildings and housing societies have spaces which are probably unused, which are lying bad in a bad shape, and they are not providing, and they're probably becoming a menace because there can be garbage thrown there can be all the debris thrown there for some reason, or they can become sources of various other nuisance. And these are probably spaces that one can consider for various kinds of things. So you can have a whole range of things that can be done in your housing society, both as a measure of increasing the green cover and the biodiversity and reducing the carbon footprint of your building, but also as a means of maybe engaging with the younger generation, involving people and communicating with them about sustainability aspects and so on. So you can have a butterfly, a part of your thing can be a butterfly park, or you can create a water body if you have the space, or you can plant native trees, or you can have an area which is only dedicated to birds and providing bird feeders and things like that, or even water for the birds during the summer and so on. So there's a whole lot of things also in this area, which is a very interesting area that different housing societies can consider, can think of any area which can be beautified as well as made green both. Quickly, I want to show you that doing an audit for all of these things is a very good idea. One can do an audit, and the process for this generally is to look at historical data. One, that is, if you have, say, electricity bills, if you have water usage data, if you have anything about solid waste, all of this is collection of historical data is one very important thing which you can do either voluntary, your own building members or can do it, or consulting agency can do it. So you can actually visit and go through the building, do a screening and walking survey. You can use even tools to measure something for different types, like for energy audit, water, waste audit, and even for pollution, you can check this SPM levels in certain places. You can then do a detailed investigation and analysis, that is the third step, and finally come up with a report as to what can be done in your society and what would be the cost of doing that change. So a number of things in terms of planning and resources is important. What kind of space you have, what is the cost that will be required, can it be done in phases, Is it would it require a maintenance? I was just discussing with Caroline about this before the webinar, that maintenance is a very important factor. We may introduce a green element, but in so many societies, we have seen that post maintenance is not thought of, and that becomes a huge, maybe in some cases even a white elephant, which it doesn't work. So maintenance has to be thought of right in the beginning. Awareness of the people, so knowing is important. Participation, cooperation, these are all very important. And finally, training, especially the people who are actually involved in this. And in a lot of these things, as Avinash Kubal was mentioning a while ago, involving the people, involving maybe the children of the society in taking up some of these issues is also a very good idea. Maybe they already are learning all these things in their schools, and probably they can be the leaders in the housing societies to take this forward. These are some of the sort of analysis we did, different types of audit data, so we get the consumption data and so on. Yeah, and finally, the last part is monitoring, training, capacity building. So all of these things can be thought of. You can have, you can train people in all of these various aspects of green building. You can have different occasions. You can put up a communication hoarding. Maybe somebody in the building is very good at preparing communication hoardings. You can have a special communication for all different parts of the building, which will encourage people to save energy, switch off things when they are not required, and so on. Because everything is not technology. We can put in place green technologies, we can put in space efficient lighting, but if people are not concerned, then ultimately we miss the whole boat. So all of these things should be thought of. Finally, I take a few moments to talk about redevelopment. So all of the things from energy, water, waste, all of these things, including the biodiversity, and everything can be done in a redevelopment project, provided you incorporate this at the planning stage. So make sure that if you are approaching a developer, if you're thinking of doing it on your own, and you're appointing a project management consultant, then you have taken into consideration all of these green aspects. So make sure that the project management consultant does have a person on board who is going to design for all of these things in advance. And probably you can check all of these things in advance. But a few of the mistakes which people have done in redevelopment projects, I have put here together. So firstly, of course, that there are various sections under which of the DCR, the Development Control Regulations, Development Planning and Control Regulations 2034, under which you can have the redevelopment. And section 33(7)(b) is the redevelopment of existing residential housing society, the third one. The first two are for the cessed properties and the dilapidated and so on. But section 33(7)(b) is the one where these redevelopment of existing residential housing societies are taken along with additional FSI, etc. So most probably all the housing societies which are here would fall under this category, unless they fall into the first two categories. So as I said to you, a few things which are not taken into consideration is these are the 4 points I have said, I have listed, which commonly a lot of redevelopment projects run into in terms of mistakes. One is not providing adequate light and ventilation, lacking in terms of recreational space, lack of softscapes and water for percolation, and indoor environment quality. These are some of the common things that have happened in especially redevelopment projects in Mumbai. So you have, you may have, you make, so for example, I'm just showing you a project. This is an existing building, plot A and plot B. What happens in redevelopment? Don't forget that not just you, but your neighbor is also going to redevelopment. So there is, in terms of space between buildings, is reduced when you increase your FSI. So you may get more area inside your house, but outside open space, and the space between buildings is reduced. And compromise in this case can have many severe repercussions for you, especially with respect to light and ventilation. So I just want to show you that a lot of buildings today, especially in the city area, face the problem that the lower floors are not getting light. And this, I'm not talking about SRA buildings, the slum redevelopment buildings. I'm talking about proper buildings who pay a huge amount of money, etc., or maybe who have not paid money, but of course they are getting a larger area. But then if you do not get light and ventilation, then it is a problem, because your earlier house may be getting a lot of light and ventilation. And in terms of health, this plays a major role, because of course you need natural light as a means of your good health also. But even when there is no space in between buildings, like I'll show you these pictures, you can see the gap between buildings in many of these is hardly anything. So even in terms of ventilation, these windows are meant to also act as ventilation sources as per the DCR, the development control rules. And they do not serve this purpose, because the gap is reduced and there is no cross ventilation. In fact, it can be breeding grounds of mosquitoes and other things in the future. So this is one mistake that a lot of people make. So these are some of the acts that guide. So the National Building Code has standards for lighting and ventilation. The DCR also provides you with basic norms for window to floor area ratio, what should it be, and so on. So at least refer to these when you are going for a redevelopment, and don't make these mistakes. The second thing that commonly happens is that parking. So, when you go for new buildings, you add a whole additional floors, for which you need to provide also the parking facilities. Sometimes you have double parking and all of these parking things that you provide. And as a result, what we do is, if you have currently a lot of open ground, you're converting that into a concretized area. And then during the rainy season, and I had actually given a report on why certain areas the flooding has increased now, is because a lot of areas have gone into redevelopment. And this excessive concretization, the runoff coefficient of these concretized surfaces is close to zero point 0.9, whereas gardens and softscapes have a runoff coefficient of 0.2 to 0.45. So almost 50% of the water falling on these softscapes gets absorbed in the ground, while 100% of the water falling on the concrete surfaces run off. So all this leads to excessive water on the roads, excessive water on all the stormwater system. The stormwater system of Mumbai, we're still relying on that old system, which was designed for a peak rainfall of 25 mm per hour and a runoff coefficient of 0.5. Whereas with now, that the peak intensity is much more than 25, and the runoff coefficient also is close to 1, because everything is concretized. So if you have open spaces in the redevelopment, also make sure that you have enough amount of open ground where the percolation can take place, where you can have, or even if you provide the hard surfaces, there are today now concrete available, wherein you can percolate the water inside and still allow the cars and other things to move. So make sure that you are not doing these mistakes. So these are in terms of some of the common things that have happened not so correctly as far as environment is concerned in the redevelopment projects, and one should look out for. And finally, last word on the government policies and the green regulations. So one of the things that help people in terms of use of renewable energy is the net metering policy. So this is something that can be considered. That is, if you put rooftop solar PV or solar thermal, then you have the option that you can sell it to. You can look up this SECI, through which several companies do this entire process for free. They will come and they will check the feasibility of this project as part of the central government's policy. There is a whole lot of companies which are assigned to do this entire thing for you. So you do not need to invest anything. They will see that the amount goes to them instead of to the utility. And so this can also be done. So this is a favorable policy. Apart from that, the National Building Code 2016, see, for most of the things, the architects referred to the National Building Code. And in 2016, there was a major change in the National Building Code. It added a whole volume 2, chapter 11, which only talks about sustainability. So it has included all of these aspects that I have talked about in it, and generally architects have to refer to this. We also have the energy conservation building code, which was until now, you can see it was only meant for commercial buildings. But in 2018, the code was also introduced for the residential buildings. And so Eco Nivas Samhita 2018, when you're going for new buildings, you can go for a energy efficient building. So that will reduce your energy consumption in the long run, and also you can be rated for as a as per the code, the energy conservation building code of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency. Lastly, there is also a star rating. Just like you have star rating for equipment, you also have star rating for residential buildings. So this is also an option. So this by the way can be done even at a flat level. So if your flat is energy efficient, you could have it rated. You'll get a passport as well as a plaque which you can put outside your house, saying that yours is a residential energy label, which is like 5-star or 3-star or whatever it is. I think it's a very good means of communication, and it sends a very good message about a housing society, or as a even or an apartment. And it can be done at even at the for existing buildings or for new buildings both. So this is I think the last. So finally, we all talk about all of these measures, and our ultimate aim is that we have to give back to the environment what we have taken so much from it. We benefit from it, and we have seen it during the lockdown, how much we have destroyed and what are the effects of that. And so we try to go net zero in all of these areas: energy, water, and waste. We try to make the buildings net zero and give back to the environment. So that's it. I just want to talk very briefly about our company, which comprises of a multidisciplinary team of architects, planners, academicians, ecologists. We have a multidisciplinary team which works on all of these areas, and our aim is mainly to provide context-specific or sustainable solutions to clients. Uh, and we cater to all sectors, from schools to factories to industries to housing societies, and help them in making more efficient spaces. We call this as eco spaces. So whether it is architecture, interior, energy efficiency, environment, even capacity building, and even doing programs which we do in nature, like we call it rendezvous with nature. We take people on trips and also teach them various things related to environment. So a whole lot of things that we do. So that's it. The contact details of mine are here. In case anybody has any questions, you can always write back to me, and we can be in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roshni. We have one question pending in the box, which is about water. These are the waterless commodes. So Pankaj wanted to know what is the cost of them. And he had two follow-up questions, which is about educating people and behavior change, which I will ask you after that. So waterless commodes, what is the cost?
I I don't know. I mean, I have seen waterless commodes, but they are specifically designed. I've not seen ready products in the market. These are like dry toilets on which people have to put in something, but they are generally not used in flats. They are used in like off-grid places like farmhouses and so on. That's where I have seen this kind of options being used, provided the user is able to make all these provisions, or make all these compromises in terms of not having a typical WC and using dry toilets.
Okay. And there are two follow-up questions from Pankaj itself related to behavior change. So one is, what are the barriers to large-scale adoption of waterless commodes? And the other one is that what are measures we can adopt to stop people from casual littering in the common areas, roads, outside the buildings, other than communication message and installing water bins, waste bins? So maybe this could be out of scope. I'm not sure. for this webinar.
Maybe you can answer that.
I think Pankaj will connect up, because I think this is not the scope of today's session, and definitely I'll be in touch with you on this. And if anybody has any other questions, if you could quickly put on your microphone and ask Roshni the questions. I'll now hand over to Caroline.
Today is Gandhi Jayanti, and Gandhi said, "Be the change that you want to see." I think it is very auspicious that the Marol Citizens Welfare Association took this initiative. And Roshni, thank you so much for signing up with our Citizens Initiative. I see a lot of interested people. We've had people signing in not only locally from Mumbai, but also from Dubai and the Philippines. So this is the power of the social media. I'm really glad we put it to good use. Your input today, Roshni, was, as usual, comprehensive and also very, very, implementable. And I think that's something that all of us are looking forward to, were looking forward to. Thank you so much. This is only the beginning, like I told you, the common man, civil society is interested, lot of good intention, but we must come together under various AGs, etc., to put pressure on policymakers, on stakeholders in the government, at our ward levels, etc., to implement this. So, I really want to thank you on behalf of the Marol Citizens Welfare Association once again. And thank you to all the people who signed in today. Spread the good news, spread the ideas, and together we will make this planet a happy place. And believe me, our dear leader, Mahatma Gandhi, will be really proud of us.
Thank you, Caroline. I think it was a wonderful. I liked doing this and connecting with people, and will be happy to help in any ways, both to any society that would be wanting to do anything. So thank you so much for giving the opportunity.
Any other questions? Anyone would like to speak to Roshni? You can unmute yourself and speak.
And you can leave your comments in the chat box.
I was happy to see we've got Dr. Avinash Kubal, who's also been very strongly associated in Mumbai, Maharashtra, with green initiatives. Dr. Kubal, it's so nice to see you part of our effort. Thank you so much. Dr. Kashyap also was associated with the Eureka Forbes Institute of Environment. What is really heartening is to see that learning and sharing, all of us, no matter how good we are and how experienced, we are willing to be part of this team. And I think this is very encouraging. Thank you so much for being part of this journey today.
I would like to share one thing here that,
Yes.
with I have a very good memories with the people from Marol. In fact, there is a good presence of people of Marol here.
Yes.
If you remember, right in year 2003 and 2004, we started working on the wasteland, which was given for adoption by the municipal corporation.
True.
In Marol area, that is near that Bamandaya Pada bus stop. And today there stands a very beautiful indigenous trees. You can say like a forest, more than 2,200 trees of more than 180 indigenous species is there. It was all done with the involvement of the people, and it was all, the entire project was in fact nurtured by the senior citizens of your society or your area, you can say.
Very true. That was Military Road Residents Welfare Association. They should, get the credit.
Probably,
they took the initiative and you joined hands. And it's true, today we have a great green patch thanks to this initiative of the Citizens Initiative and yours too, sir.
So
thank you.
We were all involved with you people at that time also.
True.
There's just one question on YouTube, Caroline. If you don't mind, I'll just quickly take that, which is from Dr. D.S. Muske of the College of Commerce and Management. He's asking about water scarcity what is to be done in water scarcity area, how to save the water in water scarcity, different methods for this. So I just want to quickly address that in places, maybe you're talking about not in Mumbai, outside Mumbai, Here, some of the things that could be done is to look at watershed management practices, such as understanding how much water falls in the rainy season, and maybe look at small things like check dams or whatever, and of course tree plantation. I have visited places in Aurangabad, and there was an organization called Jigyasa, I think, which did wonderful work by planting trees in the hillocks, and by creating these small check dams and earthen, and not using anything concrete. They just use the existing resources, and they try to stop the flow of the water during the rainy season. And we could see remarkable results, like their well levels had increased, the green cover had increased, the soil was not running off, and so on. So these are things that can be done, afforestation, plantation, and things like that in the areas where there is water scarcity. I don't know if Avinash, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, if Dr. Muske can put any specific area into consideration, like which district or which taluka or which village he is talking about, probably he can be guided individually also for taking initiative. But as you discussed it, like in low rainfall areas, there are a lot of soil conservation and water conservation practices can be adopted, and through which the groundwater levels can be increased. Even the availability of water, the surface water can also be increased. So I would request Dr. Muske to contact later on also.
Yes, I'm saving this entire chat, and
Please.
anybody
Yeah.
who wants, I can send the details to you.
Yeah.
I want to share that in Blossom Society, which is in Marol, we have initiated the recharge pits, which helped our bow wells to recharge our bow wells, which were almost running dry for some time. And that water was used for major repairs, which was a saving of almost about 8 to 10 lakhs, I'm told, because we didn't use a single tanker for the repairs of something like 1,75,000 square meters. So it was a great saving, and it's all because of those recharge pits that we had done with the help of the Eureka Forbes Institute of Environment, and all these things. So I want to tell people, in these small things there were big savings, like you rightly said, Roshni.
Nice.
Anyone else would like to share their happy stories, their initiatives, their journey before? You can unmute and talk. I see everyone on mute here. So like we said, Roshni, I'm really looking forward to the training program you're going to have on waste management. Do
Yes.
keep us, and do keep get in touch with our wards, and ask them to call on all these citizens movements and initiatives, so that we can be party to this training. We must take it to the grassroots level. It's important to compose, and we need it, but we need the training.
Definitely. Definitely.
There are some questions. Does Trupti Shetty want to say something?
He was involved with this greening project of Bharat One. So at that time, she was a budding architect. Now, after 20 years, I mean, I'm hearing her for after long, long time. I think that's the same Trupti Shetty.
Yes, true. Trupti is very active in.
Yeah, from the Blossom
Marol
Society.
area. Yes. So, then on that note, if we have we want to say once again a big thank you to Roshni for sparing your time and taking us on this journey, giving us very practical, useful tips, helping to educate us on the whole role and the impact on global warming due to carbon footprints. thank you so much. It's nothing, it's something that all of us, common man and women, can do. And we're looking forward to journeying and partnering together. So on behalf of, once again, of Marol Citizens Welfare Association, I want to thank you, Roshni, and all of you who were participated in this. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.